Peter was walking through a wooded area when he suddenly heard a strange sound coming from the bushes that caught his attention. He decided to take a look, and to his surprise, saw a strangely tiny animal. When he looked closer, he thought it was a puppy, but he wasn't sure. He decided to take him to the vet. Upon arrival, the vet immediately screams in complete shock. Peter and his wife Bianca were completely caught off guard by the vet's reaction. They had expected that he might have been surprised by the appearance of the puppy, but this outburst felt way out of line. The vet was literally screaming, but he had a very good reason. Because unlike Peter and Beyonce and anybody they had spoken to so far, the vet actually knew what animal they were dealing with her. It was most definitely not a puppy, and not something that Peter should have ever gotten his hands on. When the vet finally told the couple the truth, they could not believe how stupid they had been. They have made a big mistake taking this creature home. But what was this strangely tiny animal really? Why did the vet have such an extreme reaction, and in how much trouble was Peter? It was a sound that Peter was not at all familiar with. He had walked in these woods many times as a child and an adult, but never heard anything like this before. And he could not help that it now piqued his curiosity. He needed to find the source. But in hindsight, he wishes that he had just kept walking that faithful day. The sound led Peter off the forest path and to a couple of bushes. Having no idea what he was dealing with, Peter knew that he had to act carefully. But when he pushed some of the bushes aside and found the creature producing this strange sound, he was quickly at ease. This animal looked anything but dangerous. But the more they looked at it, the less he could make sense of what it actually was. It was clearly a young animal, but Peter was not sure what kind exactly. All he could speculate was that it looked most like a strange puppy, but he would turn out to be very wrong with this assessment. But despite him not knowing what animal this was exactly, he did understand why it was making this sound. This puppy was much too young to survive here without his mother, and seeing how thin it had become, Peter suspected that its mother had not been here in a while. So Peter was left with a difficult decision to make. Would he leave the puppy here, in the hopes that its mother would come back to feed and protect it? Or was he going to take matters into his own hands and bring this puppy with him back to the city? Seeing the state that this poor animal was in, the decision was not a hard one to make. He very carefully reached out to the puppy and lifted the animal up. He got a small bag with him in which the puppy fit perfectly. But the animal did not stop making its crying sounds. It was obviously stressed. It was about an hour walking back to the city, and this gave Peter enough time to figure out what he wanted to do next. He could not go to the vet as he was not open on the weekend, only for emergencies, but that would cost a lot more money that Peter was not willing to spend. But luckily, Peter was also confident in his own ability to take care of a puppy. They had a dog at home, and when he still lived with his parents, they actually had their dog deliver a litter of puppies that he was more than willing to help with. If only he knew what animal he was really dealing with. The most important thing he needed for this animal was puppy milk, and while he did not have a dog that could provide that, his own dog is male, he did know that you can buy adequate substitutes at the pet store, and so, on his way home, he went by one. He still had the strange-looking puppy with him, though, and it was drawing a lot of eyes on the store. People had not seen any creature that looked so small as this before, and naturally, Peter started to get questions about it. But his answers left most people unsatisfied. The fact that he had just taken this creature out of the forest rubbed some people the wrong way. And while he believed that he was saving a puppy here, a lot of people were thinking that this was not a puppy at all, but they could also not tell him what he was actually dealing with here. There are a lot of creatures living in the forest of which we have no idea how their babies look. It could easily have very much belonged in the forest, and Peter was interfering in something he had no business in. Peter was very much surprised by this negative reaction, mainly because he did not see it like that at all. In his mind, he was doing something very noble. He was making an effort to save a defenseless and helpless creature. Peter quickly bought the mild he needed and made his way out of the store. He did not need this. And besides, He was still convinced that he was dealing with a puppy of some sort, and he was sure the vet would confirm that to him tomorrow. For now, he was going to do everything in his power to keep this animal alive. It had stopped its crying a little while ago, but Peter was pretty sure that it was from exhaustion. With how weak it looked, it probably did not have the energy to put up much of a fuss. Back home, Peter started preparing the milk, before even telling his wife Bianca that he had brought something home. And she walked in on him giving the animal the bottle, and was stunned by what she was witnessing. But she did not have time to be shocked for too long, as she was forced to act very quickly just behind her. Their dog Benjamin also walked into the room, and the moment he laid eyes on the creature in Peter's hand, he charged him and started to bark as loud as he could. Bianca just about managed to grab him by the collar and pull him back. They had never seen their dog behave like this. Peter put the animal down for a second and helped Bianca get Benjamin into another room. But even with the door closed, the dog did not stop barking. They were both completely caught off guard by this behavior, as Beyoncé herself was notorious for bringing in animals she found, and Benjamin had never reacted like that before. What made this animal so different? With the peace returned to the room a bit, Bianca could finally take a closer look at the animal that her husband had brought in while Peter went back to giving it milk. The animal was drinking as much of it as possible, and it started to look better by the second. And while Peter was still very sure that he was dealing with a puppy, Bianca was not so sure. Unlike the people at the pet store, she was actually very happy that Peter brought it home and thinks that he might have saved the creature's life because of this. But she just does not recognize a dog in it. She took a couple of pictures of it, and while Peter was making a place for the creature to spend the night, she actually took it upon herself to look online if she could find anything that resembled this very strange-looking baby animal. She was determined, but no matter how much Bianca tried, she found nothing that made her sure of what this animal could be. And she actually started to believe that it was a dog after all, as there were so many kinds of puppies around, and if one lost most of its hairs, it could theoretically look like this animal. But she also knew that maybe only the vet could give them an answer with any kind of confidence. And so she was happy that Peter had set up an appointment for the next day, early in the morning. She did not want to wait long for answers, even though the puppy had drunk a lot of milk and was doing a lot better by the looks of things. Peter was still afraid it might not make it through the night. What if it had a bad reaction to the milk, or if it was too cold? He could not explain why he cared so much, but he did. And so Peter decided to stay up all night to keep an eye on the animal. Bianca was very surprised that her husband was willing to make such a sacrifice for an animal that he had only found a couple of hours ago. She had never seen this side of her husband before, and luckily for Peter, the animal made it through the night without many problems. It woke up a couple of times and Peter gave it one more bottle of milk. And Bianca even came to him around 3 o'clock to keep watch over the animal so that he could still get some sleep. She definitely did not feel a similar connection to the creature as Peter, but she had a lot of respect for what he did and wanted to support him however so could. She was also planning on joining him at the doctor's the next morning. She was too curious not to. The animal turned out to be a baby red panda. Its mother had escaped from the zoo and given birth in the forest. The vet would end up revealing to them that they had not found a puppy, but actually a baby red panda. Its mother had escaped from the local zoo and gave birth at this time. Employees had found her already, but were tireless looking through the forest for her baby. If this story touched you as much as it did us, you should watch this video. Man thinks he has bird eggs in his air shaft. He's stunned after realizing they aren't bird eggs. Click here to get the full story.